Okay, okay. Before we begin, let's take a few moments to worship the Supreme One, the infinitely compassionate One, the undefeatable One, the Supreme Buddha. To do this, can you all be upstanding and recite the Namaskar with me? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, you may now all be seated. Before we commence, let's take a few moments to make a firm determination that may these qualities of the great Arhats, whose every footstep were a blessing to the world, may their qualities be part and parcel of my life. May I also have these qualities, and through this may I also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. And also let's not forget that through this long journey in Sansara, we may have not been great people. And so to these Arhats, to the Pacheka Buddhas, the Arhat Buddhas, the Samma Sambuddhas, and anyone who's practiced the path, and to anyone in the world, we have definitely done wrong to them, hurt them, slandered, scolded them, and so due to this, our path may be blocked. So, I'd like you to all take a moment and ask for their forgiveness. Ask for their forgiveness and may you be forgiven. You have to accept what you have done was wrong. And now, you'll try your very best not to do it again. Making such a firm determination. Let's begin. Okay. Imagine you're wealthy. You've got a lot of money. And then your husband decides to give it all away. How would you feel? Now imagine you were poor. So poor, in fact, that you only had one garment to wear between you and your husband. And then he gave that away. How would you feel? Now, today we're going to be talking about the great Arhat, Mihinwasa, Bhadra Kapilani. She was the wife of the Prince Pipali, who later ordains and becomes the great Arhat, Mahakashapa. You see, their story didn't start a few days ago, before their life. They went to an entire Sansara together. From life to life, as partners. You can almost say like soulmates. They came together. You see, like most other Arhats, their story started 100,000 eons before, at the time of the Buddha Padumuttara. So, Bhadra Kapilani was married to Prince Videha. And this Prince Videha liked to listen to Dharma. He was brought up in a household that encouraged him to listen to the Dharma, to go to the temple. And so when he was married, he encouraged his wife to do the same. But unfortunately, this wife wasn't as keen as her husband. But no matter what, Prince Videha He wasn't going to give up. He tried and tried and tried and tried. And finally, he was able to go to a monastery, to the monastery. When I mean the monastery, I mean the monastery that the Buddha resided in. And so they got to listen to the Dharma, and at the end of the discourse, the Buddha appointed a monk as the foremost among monks to practice austerity. Now you can imagine Prince Videha's wife looking at Prince Videha, and Prince Videha had a great smile on his face. You can almost imagine that Prince Videha was turned to his wife and said, you know what, I want to be like that guy. I want to be like that monk. I want to be the foremost like that. And so after the discourse, Prince Videha went to the Buddha and worshipped the Buddha and invited him to an almsgiving at his house. Now, he asked the Buddha, "Oh, Venerable Sir, how many monks are in the monastery?" The Buddha replied saying, 70,000 monks. Then, Venerable Sir, I invite you all, every single monk, do not leave one monk behind. So he's invited 70,000 monks. I just want to take a moment to show you how much 70,000 is. Now, if you've been to a football stadium before, usually they don't hold more than 20,000 or so people. As I remember, the O2 Arena, one of the most famous stadiums in the UK, only holds 20,000 people. Even the grounds that hold the Super Bowl contest, they don't go above 50,000. So imagine a large stadium of people. 70,000. And he invited all of them. Leave no monk behind. Leave not even a novice monk behind. Please, Venerable Sir, bring them all. And so the Buddha silently accepted the invitation. And so you imagine Prince Videha holding his wife's hand, running to his house to get ready. Okay, maybe he has 80 million gold coins, but to accommodate 70,000 monks? Because his house is probably not as big. We're talking about a stadium here. His house probably couldn't accommodate that much, so he had to build an extra place for this, just to give alms. And he gave the best he possibly could. He probably gave them scented rice and stuff like that. Even things that he doesn't normally eat. He wanted to give the best. Now his wife didn't say a single word. Nothing. She didn't go and say, no, don't do that. 70,000, how are we going to do that? That's impossible. We're going to need so many people and ... None of that. Instead, she was extremely happy as well. But they didn't do it for one day. 7 days. 7 days for 70,000 monks. They must have had a lot of money. And you can imagine Prince Videha didn't even care what happened to his money. He just wanted to give alms. And so his wife did the exact same. She helped her husband as much as she possibly could. And after the 7th day, she saw her husband fall onto his knees in front of the Buddha and request the Buddha, please sir, please Venerable Sir, may I also be the foremost among monks who practice austerity in a future Buddha Sasana. And she heard this, and she also heard Prince Videha, in another 100,000 eons. At the time of the Buddha Gautama, you will achieve it. You will achieve your wish. Your wish will be fulfilled. And you can imagine, in her head she's saying, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. She was applauding. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wow, my husband will become like that monk. Because this monk, or his name was Venerable Nisimba, he didn't come to the alms. He was the only monk who didn't come to this almsgiving. And so when Prince Videha asked the Buddha, why did he come? The Buddha replied saying, it's because he practices his austerity. He only takes alms by begging for it, going door to door, leaving no door behind, no house behind. Whether it's rich, whether it's poor, you'll be there begging for alms. So you can imagine how happy she was. And don't forget, she gave alms as well. She gave alms to the Mahasangha as well. The Buddha and the Mahasangha. But you see, it was only later, when she grew old, that she decided she wanted to do the same thing as well. She decided she wanted to go to the monastery all by herself, without her husband forcing her. Do you not see what her husband had done? Had encouraged her to do merits, had encouraged her to go to the temple, to go to the monastery. It may not have been easy, but he did it. And so one day she went to the temple, the monastery, all by herself, without her husband forcing her or telling her to do anything. But fortunately, she heard a sermon preached by the Buddha, and at the end of the sermon, she saw a certain nun being appointed the title, the foremost among nuns, to recall past lives. Now, she was elated. She was filled with joy. You know what? I want to be the same. I want to also be the foremost that I can recall my past lives. I want to be that. I want to be like that nun. And so, again, she gave alms. She gave alms all by herself. And at the end, she went to the Buddha and requested, Venerable Sir, is it possible that I could one day live like that nun? May I also be the foremost among nuns who can recall past lives in a future Buddha sasana. And so the Buddha looked into the future and said, my lady, your wish will be fulfilled. In another 100,000 eons in the future, in the Okaka clan arises the Buddha Gautama, who will preach the Dharma. And you, dear lady, will be heir to his Dharma. And you'll be the foremost among nuns to recall past lives. Now both of them had prophecies. Husband was going to be the foremost among monks to practice austerity, and the wife, the foremost among nuns to recall past lives. Both of them had prophecies. Both of them were prophesied to become arhats in the time of the Buddha Gautama. And both of them continue to do merits, continue to fulfill the merits that are needed to achieve the title. And so, when they passed away, they were born in the heavens, in the Tusita heavens. And at the time of the Buddha Vipassi, they were born, unfortunately, into a poor family who had a high caste though, but they didn't have much money. They only had one shawl between them. They didn't have enough money to have enough clothes. They only had one shawl between them. And this meant that when one of them had to go out, the other one had to stay behind. And so both of them didn't go out together. And because of this, they are named Ekasataka Brahmin and Brahminess. Ekasataka means one shawl. Now one day, Ekasataka Brahmin, he ran inside the house saying, my wife, the Buddha Vipassi has appeared. The Buddha Vipassi is preaching the Dharma. Let us go and listen to his Dharma, and let us escape from suffering once and for all. And so this made his wife extremely happy as well. Yes, The Buddha Vipassi has arrived. We'll be able to listen to his Dharma. And so the husband asked, but as we only have one shawl between us, do you want to go first or should I go first? Now this wife wasn't greedy. This wife wasn't someone who thought for herself, wasn't selfish. So she thought about this long and hard and said, my husband, I would have given the chance to you, but unfortunately, I will go in the afternoon, as it's dangerous for women to travel in the night alone. So I'll go in the afternoon, and you can take it in the night. And so after both agreeing to this, she took the shawl, she wore it, and went in the afternoon to the monastery and listened to the Buddha's preachings, the Buddha's discourse. Now we won't go into a lot of detail in the story because obviously this is more to do with the husband. So let's take it from the wife's point of view. So the wife went to the Dharma. She was extremely happy about listening to the Dharma. She came home and quickly gave the shawl to her husband. He wore it. And the first thing she did was she thanked her husband. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done. For giving me the chance to listen to the Buddha's teaching. So having heard that, the husband wore the shawl and went to the monastery. Now, when this man started listening to Dharma, he wanted to offer the shawl. Once, twice, 3 times, the idea popped into his head, but again, he had to turn it down because he only had one shawl to give. He had nothing, he had no money, no food, nothing, only a shawl. So that's the only thing he could give. So he decided, at last, he's going to give it. So now imagine, this man comes home without the shawl with him. He wasn't wearing the shawl. The wife looked at him and, what do you think? What do you think she said? Did she say, oh, you stupid man. Now how are we supposed to go out? How are we supposed to buy things? How are we supposed to work? How are we supposed to go to the temple again? Do you think that's what she said? No. She said, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But because of their deed, the king saw this and he gave them 2 shawls. And so I don't know how they had 1 each. But this wife saw her husband offer this to the Buddha. And so do you know what she did? She did as well. The king, after seeing this, offered 4 shawls. And again, they offered it. 2, 4, 8, 10, 20, 32, each and every time. They gave it back. But once the king offered 32, they both thought, you know what? The more we give, the more we're going to get. And this is probably too much of a hassle for the king as well. So let us take 2, let's give the rest, the 30, to the Buddha and Mahasangha. So that's what they did. They kept 2, and they gave the rest away. And then another time, the king, after seeing this Brahmin going to the temple, and it's cold outside, just wearing the shawl, he decided to give him a coat made out of gold. Only the king used to wear this. And you can imagine him coming home with this golden coat and the wife seeing this. Now remember, they didn't have any money, they didn't have any food. If they sold this golden coat, they would have had enough money to have a great house, to have food, to live the rest of their lives in luxury. But you know what they decided? You see, the next day, the king went to the Buddha's residence, his kuti, and saw a golden coat inside, hung, spread across the ceiling. Now, you can imagine what that king felt. These people didn't have enough money. They just had 1 shawl between themselves. They gave all 30 away and just kept 2. I give them a golden coat, and they gave that away as well. These people are non-ordinary people. And so he appointed them as chief advisors for the king. You see, both of them Ek Satu Brahmin and Brahminess. They both gave their souls away. Do you not see how much she had been through? Bhadra Kapilani wasn't a normal person. Okay, her husband kept giving souls, but never, not even the thought came, you know what, why don't we keep them? Why don't we keep them and live happily? Live in luxury? Nothing. Not even a thought like that arose. Instead, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wow, look at my husband. He's offering my soul. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But her life may all seem good and great, but her life changed. In between the time of the Buddha Konagal and the Buddha Kashyapa, a time when there was no Buddhas, no Dharma, and definitely no Sangha. You see, in that life, she did something terrible. You see, at that time she was born in a merchant family and she got married to a handsome husband who was going to be the Venerable Kashyapa. And so they lived a pretty happy family life. But then the wife, so herself and her sister-in-law, they weren't exactly friends. What I mean is they argued a lot. They used to be in disagreement a lot of the time. And so one day, they were arguing. She was arguing with her sister-in-law about something. And you can imagine this argument started to become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So big that even her husband had to be involved. The husband had to try to calm them all down, but instead made it worse. Eventually, 3 of them were shouting, screaming at each other. And while all this was happening, a Pacheka Buddha was going around for alms and had stopped in front of their house. Out of the corner of her eye, the sister-in-law saw this Pacheka Buddha and stopped the fight instantly. And she went in the kitchen and brought out some food and offered it to the Pacheka Buddha. With the best food that she had, she offered it and said, "May, by the power of the merits I have accumulated, may I not be born, not be born, may I not even see that woman ever in my future life, in my future existences. May I not be born anywhere near her." And remember, this Pacheka Buddha can't control what she thinks. So he just stands there silently. Now you can imagine what this wife was feeling. How dare she? Like, I started all this. Right? It's not me who did all this, so why is she saying she doesn't want to be born anywhere near me? You know what? Fine. And then be like that. And she stormed right in front of this Pacheka Buddha, snatched the alms bowl, and went straight for the bin and tipped it all out. Now remember, because of her anger, she didn't know what she was doing. She was intoxicated with anger, and so she went straight outside and filled the alms bowl to the brim with mud, dirt, and rotting vegetables, and gave it to the Pacheka Buddha and said, "Here, take this." And the Pacheka Buddha just stood there, turned around, and started to walk away without saying a single word, without doing anything. Now the sister-in-law saw this and went to her sister-in-law and said, "Excuse me, but what you did was wrong, was definitely wrong. Look, that Pacheka Buddha was innocent. That monk was innocent. Look, if you are angry, be angry with me. If you want to hit me, hit me. If you want to scream at me, scream at me. Shout at me. If you want, you can kill me. But do not, I repeat, do not do anything to that innocent monk. He didn't do anything. I am the cause for your anger. Take it out on me. Punch me, kick me, do anything, but don't do anything to the monk." Now imagine that, right? This wife was really angry, and now hearing her sister-in-law say all this, you can imagine what's going on in her head. what have I done? What have I done? And so that instant, she took off, ran straight to this Pachek Buddha, worshipped this Pachek Buddha and said, Venerable Sir, please forgive me. And took the alms bowl, went back into her house, spilled all this mud, dirt, and rotting fruit and vegetable out, and washed it thoroughly with scented powders and water, and tried to get rid of the smell with all the expensive things that she uses to wash herself, and then filled it with chaturmadura and ghee oil, and ran back to this Pachik Buddha, gave it to him, and worshipped him and said, Venerable Sir, please forgive me. Please forgive me, I didn't mean to do it. Please forgive me. May through the power of these merits that I've done. And she wished for a lot of things. One of them was for a beautiful body. Now you see, she gave it to a Pachik Buddha. And so the deeds that she had done, both deeds, the good and bad, were very big. And so at the time of the Buddha Kashyapa, her vipaka, the result for her karma, her actions, took place. She grew up with a beautiful body. And so she got married to a very handsome husband. But you see, the moment they got married and she entered her house, her breath started to give a stench of rotting food, of literally animals rotting. But as she was new to the house, and this husband didn't know where this smell was coming from, so asked the servants to look for what's creating the smell and get rid of it as soon as possible. And so the servants went around the house looking in the cupboards and the wardrobes and everything under the carpets and everything, and finally came to the conclusion it came from his wife. And when they investigated a bit further and told her husband, it's coming from your wife's mouth. And so this husband decided to see if he could resist, can live with this. But after about a day or two, thought, no, it smells too bad. And so asked for divorce there and then. And so, because she was beautiful, again, another man took her in. Another man married her. And again, when she entered the house, again her breath smelled. And again, divorced. Then another man, another man, another man. She got married 7 times. And just when she gets married and enters the house of her husband, her breath starts to stink. Starts to give off a putrid smell. 7 times. And so after the 7th time, she thought, you know what? I can't do this anymore. What is the point of getting married if I'm going to get divorced in after 2 days? Maximum of 2 days. What is the point? And so, you can imagine what sort of state she's in. That no one wants to be with her. And so what she did was she took all of her jewelry, all of her gold, and gave it to a goldsmith, and melted it all down, and made them all into a golden brick. A brick of gold. By that time, the Buddha Kashyapa had passed away. And so with his golden brick with her, she went past a monastery where she saw something amazing. She saw a pagoda being built. It was almost finished. And so she saw there were some builders building on the top, and she asked what they were doing, and they said, we're building a pagoda to put the relics of the Buddha Kashyapa in. But there seems to be one small problem. They were missing one brick. Now you can imagine what she was feeling in that moment. They were missing one brick, and in her pocket or in her bag, she had one golden brick. So you can imagine her jumping up saying, "I have a brick. Please take it." Showing them this golden brick. "Please take it and finish the pagoda." And so these builders thought, it is almost like fate that this woman came. And so they helped this woman come up on top of this pagoda and told her how to lay the brick. She laid that brick all by herself. She was born in a rich family. You can imagine she doesn't even know how to lay a brick. But these builders taught her, and she happily placed that brick. But not only that, she bought 8 blue lilies and offered it to the pagoda. Now, right now, if she could make a wish, what do you think she wished for? That's exactly what she wished for. She said, "May by the power of all the merits I've done, may my body spread the smell of blue lilies and sandalwood throughout. And may I also be as happy as the Buddha Kashyapa. May I also attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana." 2 wishes. One for this body that smells of sandalwood and blue lilies, and Nibbana. And because of that happiness that's bubbling inside of her, the wish to have a body that smells of sandalwood and blue lilies gave fruit instantly. At that moment, her first husband had thoughts about her. And so he went and talked to his ex-wife basically, and said, "Darling, I can't live without you. Please, can you remarry me?" His wife said, "But I can't. I have melted all of my gold. I don't have a golden necklace, earrings, nothing. I'm not suitable for marriage anymore." And her ex-husband said, "It doesn't matter. I'll give you all the gold you need. Please be married with me." And so she decides, okay, fine, I'll get married. She gets married. This time when she enters the house, instead of the putrid smell of rotting flesh, this time she smells of sandalwood and blue lilies. And so she told her husband why. Why is she smelling like this? And her husband gave an applause of joy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Do you not see what anger can do to you? Anger can blind you. Do you think she didn't know that it was a monk? She probably did, but the anger was controlling her. The anger was deluding her thoughts. She didn't know what she was doing. And so she did it though. She offered mud to the Buddha. And so after this, she was born in the heavens, and at the time of the Buddha Gautama. She was born in the country of Magadha, in the Sagar town. She was reborn in the Brahmana's Kausiya's, the Queen Kausiya's womb. Around 4 years earlier, the Brahmin Pipali was born in the country of Magadha, in a Brahmin village called Great Ford, which was where he was born to Queen Kapila's womb. You see, this story is very strange because it's fate that brings these two people together. You'll see, right? So soon they grew up, right, in 2 different countries, right? So Magadha and Madda. Right, soon Pipali, or the Brahmin Pipali, became 20 and Bhadda was 16. And so the mother and father of Pip told their son that if you're now mature enough to marry someone, who are you going to marry? Like, do you want us to pick someone out for you? But he had come from the Brahman realms. And so he said, no, please, I don't want to marry. I don't know, I don't have the need to marry. Please do not say such a thing. As long as you live, I will look after you, mother, father, until your very last breath. After that, I will go forth. I will ordain. From a very young age, he had the idea to ordain. But the mother and father wanted to see their son, in inverted commas, happy. And so another few days' time, they said the same thing. My dear son, it's time for you to get married. If you want, we can choose a suitable wife for you. She'll help you, she'll love you, and so on and so forth. Soon, just like a small child nags their parents for something they want, these parents started to nag the Brahmin Pipali. Please, 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 please get married. And you can imagine, this was a nuisance for the young Brahmin. And so he thought about this and said, okay, mother, I'll get married, but I have one condition. At that moment, he went to a goldsmith, gave this goldsmith thousands of golden coins, and asked this goldsmith to make a beautiful girl made out of gold. And so this goldsmith took his time, made a statue, a lifelike statue in gold. He polished it, dressed it, and adorned it in ornaments, flowers, and made literally a golden statue of a beautiful girl. And so Pipali looked at it and was very impressed by the goldsmith and told his mother, Mother, if you find someone like this golden statue, I promise you I will be married to her. But if not, I will not get married. So imagine Pipali to be very, very stubborn. But he didn't want to get married. But you see, his mother knew that her son was very meritorious. So there should be someone like this. So surely there must be a woman who looks like this golden statue. So she summoned 8 Brahmins and gave them food, clothes, and whatever they wished for. And they mounted this golden statue on a chariot. And the mother said, go, Brahmins, go wherever you want to. But go look for a woman, a girl that looks like the statue. Look for a girl that is suitable for my son to marry. And so she sent them off. Now think about it, right? They're looking for a person that looks like a statue. They didn't know where to begin. So each of them thinking, where should they go? Until one of them said, brothers, let's go to the country that is a mine of women. A woman mine. The country of Bhadda. And so they went to Bhadda, exiting the town of Sagar. Now they went for days and days looking for this until they got bored. And so what they did was, they put this golden statue outside and they went to a pond that people bathed in. At that time, right? So, Bhadda was a princess, right? And so she had a nurse that looked after her, a nanny. And so at that moment, she was washed and decorated, and they made her sit in her royal chamber while the nurse went to bathe. And so you can imagine, she's like, stay here, I'm coming back in another half an hour, just stay here, don't go anywhere. Now, think about it, Bhadda is 16. She's very playful, right? And you can imagine that she wasn't someone who listened to her nurse either, who was very stubborn and very playful as well. So this nurse went to this pond to wash herself, and when she went and she got into this pond, she saw something in the bushes, and that's when she saw the golden statue. But she didn't see the golden statue. She saw the Princess Bhadda. And she stormed to her and threatened her. Why did you come here? I told you to stay in the room. She raised her hand and said, why don't you listen to me? Go back quickly. And gave the statue a slap. So hard that it made a very loud sound and it hurt very bad. Because remember, it's gold, right? And that's when she realized, wait, that can't be my lady. That's a statue. And that's when these 8 Brahmins surrounded this woman and asked her, does your master's daughter look like this? Why? Yes, my master's daughter does look like this. Well, you can almost say she's more beautiful than this. Then come with us. And so they mounted this golden statue back on the chariot and they went to the castle. And so when they went inside, the mother and father of Bhadda asked, like, why did you come? Where did you come from? And so they said they came from the house of the Brahma Kapilani in the great fort village in Magadha. And so they asked, why did you come? And they said, because the prince Pipali wants to get married. And so they started to discuss about lineages, wealth, and so on and so forth. And they found that they're very similar. So they decided to give their daughter's hand in marriage to the Prince Pipali. And so they went back telling the mother of Pipali that they found a girl. What should they do? And so the Brahmin Pipali heard this and thought, how is this possible? I thought that they would never find someone like this. Oh, I've been so unlucky. Why is this happening? I shall send her a letter explaining that I don't want to get married. And so he secretly wrote a letter saying, my lady Bhadda, I am not suitable for you. Because after my parents have passed away, I will ordain, I will go forth, I will renunciate, and I will leave you behind. So please don't get married to me. But when Bhadda heard that she was going to get married, she also thought, you know what, I can't get married. I don't want to get married. And so she also wrote a letter saying, you know, in the future, I don't want to get married because in the future I want to renunciate. So if you get married to me, I'm going to have to leave you. So both of them had the same idea and they sent the letters. They secretly gave the letters. But unfortunately, when these two letters met, and so the two people decided to read these letters because they both sent letters on the same day, on the same time, and both of them were secret as well. So they opened both letters and saw that both of them had the idea to ordain that they don't want to get married. And so what they did was they rewrote these letters saying that they want to get married and so on and so forth, the complete opposite of the letters. And it doesn't matter what you think, I want to get married to you and whatever. And send these letters again. And when these two, the prince and princess, received these letters, read this, I don't want to get married. And they ripped these up and threw them in the fireplace, threw them outside. But unfortunately, both of them, they had to get married. Their parents were looking forward for it, and so they decided, for the joy of my parents, I'll get married. And so, after they got married and they decided to live together, the young Brahmin took a garland of flowers and set it up in the middle of the bed. Bhadda did the exact same thing. And so, after they had their meals and when night fell, they decided, well, we both have to sleep on the same bed. And so, the Pipali went to the right side and laid down, and Bhadda went to the left side and laid down. And because they laid 2 garlands of flowers in the middle and said, on whichever side the flowers fade, we will know that a lustful thought arose on that side. So do not come near the garland of flowers. So because they were scared their bodies may come into contact accidentally, they passed the hours without falling asleep. They loved each other, but not a single lustful thought arose between them. And funnily enough, their parents-in-laws, they looked after the properties, the wealth, the businesses, and all this. Their family estates, and so Pipali and Bhadda didn't really care about any of that. But all the money went to them as well. So Pipali had 870 million. It is said that the gold powder that was thrown away after he bathed his body for one day was enough to buy land, a big piece of land. But not only that, he had 60 reservoirs with irrigation machines. His workplace was so big that there were 14 villages put together. And he had 12 of those. He had 14 elephant armies, 14 horse armies, 14 chariot armies. But once his mother and father passed away, now he had everything to look after. So one day after mounting a decorated horse, so he went to work, and he stood on top of a hill in the middle of 10 million fields that were being plowed to have seeds planted. And he had seen birds, crows, digging up and eating earthworms, insects and things that are in the dirt. And so he called one of the workers and said, "Worker, can you tell me, what are these birds eating?" Sir, those birds are eating earthworms and insects." Okay. So that is bad, right? That's bad deeds. Now, who will pay for these bad deeds done by the birds? Well, noble sir, the fields belong to you, and you're the one who tells us to plow, and so it belongs to you. It belongs to you, noble sir. And so, that moment he realized, no. Wait. I can't be responsible for all this, because I will have to repay for all of this. No matter what is done, I will have to repay. So what is the point of this 870 million amount of money and these 14 villages and these 60 reservoirs? There is no point. You know what? I'm going to give everything I have away to my wife, and I'll renunciate and go forth. But you see, at the same time, Bhadda Kapilani was sitting in the garden, surrounded by helpers, who had put 3 pots of sesame seeds that were sown in the inner fields. And she saw crows eating the worms that dwelt in the sesame, and asked one of the helpers, "Excuse me, what are those birds eating?" "Worms and insects, my lady." "So those are bad deeds, right? Who is responsible for these bad deeds?" "You, my lady." "How? Why? What? Now what am I going to do? If all these bad deeds are done, how am I supposed to lift my head from Sansara? How am I supposed to exit suffering if I'm doing so many bad things? When my husband comes home, I'm going to give everything I own to him and get permission to renunciate." So both of them had the same idea. They wanted to give their wealth to each other and go and renunciate. So Pipali, after he worked, he went and bathed, and he went into his mansion and sat down on his couch. They had a meal prepared for them, and they both ate, and they sat down on the sofa by themselves. And so Pipali told Bhadda, "Bhadda, when you came into this house, how much wealth did you bring?" She replied saying, 55,000 carts, noble sir." "Okay then, that means from today forth, you will have all my wealth." So the 55,000 carts plus the 870 million and the 60 reservoirs and irrigation system, I'm giving this all over to you. "But then where will you go?" "I'm going to go forth. I'm going to renunciate." "But noble sir, but my dear husband, I thought of the same thing as well. I was sitting here waiting for you so I can ask for permission to renunciate as well." And in that moment they realized they both wanted to renunciate. And so they gave their wealth away, they gave their property away, they gave everything away. They got robes and dyed them in yellow, bought some clay balls and shaved each other's hair off, and decided to depart. You see, no one from their home recognized them. Whether it was servants or workers, no one could recognize them. But it was only when they entered the servants' village did people start recognizing them as the two people that lived in a mansion, Bhadda and Pippali. And they started crying, saying, "Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving your lives?" And they explained, saying, "We do not want to stay in Sansara for long. We want to escape Sansara. We can't. It will take me 100 years to free you all one by one." So, after washing each other's heads, live as free men, which meant he went into the villages where he had servants. So the whole village was his servants. And he said, "If I can free you all one by one, it's going to take me 100 years. You wash each other's heads and live as free men." Hearing this, these servants started to cry, "Thank you for freeing us." And so they left and journeyed. Soon, this ascetic Pippali thought, he looked behind and saw his ex-wife behind him and thought she was very pretty. People may be thinking that they couldn't separate each other, and that's why she's following him. It's not suitable. If someone had a bad thought in their mind, they may risk being born in lower realms, in the hells. So I must go by myself. And so they went forward until they met a junction in the path, and they both stood at the head. And he said, "Bhadda, having seen such a woman as you follow me, people may think that we have renunciated but we can't live apart. And so they may do bad merits, demerits. So I'll go one way and you go another." And Bhadda understood this and said, "Very well, we shall separate. I'll take this way, you take the other." She worshipped her husband 3 times. She said, "Our friendship, our fellowship has run over 100,000 eons, will be broken today." Which meant every single life, they were husband and wife. They were friends. They are with each other throughout their entire samsara for 100,000 eons. And today, they are breaking the relationship. And so, he said, "As you are told to belong to the right, you take the right path. As I'm a woman that belongs to the left, I'll go on the left path." And now, having worshipped him one more time, entered left path. At that moment, there's an earthquake. When they separated, the earth began to shake. Because of their virtues, because throughout 100,000 years they were together, but on that day they separated. Their virtues, they have accumulated throughout Sansara. Because of all of that, when they separated, the earth began to shake. And as we know, the ascetic Pippali ordains in the Buddha Sasana and becomes the elder Mahakashyapa, whereas Bhadda, she ordained in a wandering nun's monastery. But when Mahapajapati Gautami decided to go forth and ask for dispensation for women, she ordained and within no time became an arhat. After that, the Buddha gave her the title, the foremost among nuns, who can recollect their former lives. They ran an entire samsara together. From that day, they separated, went their own ways. Both of them becoming arhats, both of them achieving their goals. So that was the story of the Venerable Bhadda Kapilani. Just remember, she did a lot of merit. By just watching her husband do all this, all she did was she was elated and gave an applause. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Do you not see how far she went because of that? Look at the distance she went. And not only that, look at the determination. If a single lustful thought arises, may the garland of flowers fade away. But when they woke up, both flowers were fresh, just like they put them the night before. Both of them were determined to achieve their goal. They were able to make everyone happy. They were able to stop their parents from being sad. They did what their parents want, but they were determined to achieve their goals. They were determined, and so they did it. Let's not forget, right, that do you not see what anger can do to you? Anger can change you completely. You see that she filled the part Jacob with his arms bowl with mud because of anger. Just stop and think. You see, both of them went through Sansara together. Every life together. It was fate that brought them together. Well, not fate. Causes and effects. And it's because of these causes and effects, or fate, they left each other. They left each other to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Okay, let's take a few moments before we conclude to transfer merits. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits we've all acquired by making reference to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirth, listening to Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of Lord Buddha's teachings. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer the merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasakas, Upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha, and passed it down to the generation of the noble lineage in form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available us today to study, to understand, to comprehend the Dharma. Let's also take more transfer merits we all acquired to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all the chapters, who have dedicated their lives to no path and committed themselves to the betterment of all sentient beings. Let's not forget among them will be the monks and nuns resident in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by the side of thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to the Guru Saranansa and all the monks present in the monasteries, as well as Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let's all take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who made great efforts to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha. Be that by translating these sermons, sharing them out with others, inviting others to join them. May through the power of these merits, if any have been born on the lower plane, may they redeem themselves in born on the blessed plane. May through the power of these merits, may they abstain from non-meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort, path, and taste supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer merits if we're acquired to our devotees, friends in the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes every one of you who contribute to the construction of the monastery, those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes, medicine, as well as those who pass on the know-how, extend their well wishes. May the power of these merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain the supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's all take moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers, employees, and all those who help us, support us, assist us in any way, shape, or form. By the power of these merits, may they be healed of any physical, mental ailments. May they overcome the obstacles in their spiritual progress. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain the supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to Devas, Brahmins, spirits, demons, Pranams, Sakradevas, as well as numerous gods and deities who have committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddhasasana. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from their meritorious deeds, fulfill their meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain supremeness Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us, to all those who have been friends, families, acquaintances in this infinitely long journey Sansara, and to those who have helped us, support, assist us in any way they could. Let's take a moment to transfer these merits. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those lost their lives in war be their friend or foe, rejoicing in the merits required today. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those who lost lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in the long journey Sansara. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to them. May through the power of these merits, if any have been born in the willful pain, may they redeem themselves in born in the willful pain. May through the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble effort path, and attain supreme Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let us all resolve, may the power of blessings of all the merits we acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of arhats in this blessed land. And finally, may through the power of all the merits required today, you and I and everyone who made this program a success, become an Arhat Mahinwanse in his very life, in the era of the Gautam Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We'll now conclude that. May the blessing of Chibucham be with you all.